Typically, I start these videos off by saying I just finished watching insert show here, and this would be Breaking Bad, but I have rewatched this series a few times, and I wanted to make a recap because I made one about season 1 when I started rewatching it, and I feel like I remember enough where I can recap the entire story and review it. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are some of my favorite shows, so today we are going to be talking about Season 3. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. You will have to excuse me because I have the order of events on my other monitor over here, so I will be looking over there occasionally to kind of get a grasp of what I'm talking about because, again, the show isn't fresh in my mind, but I've been a fan of Breaking Bad for so long. One more important thing to note, if you happen to be watching this video and currently watching Breaking Bad, I am going to spoil the rest of Breaking Bad while I'm talking about this, perhaps, okay? So, understand that. Regardless, we are finally kicking off the brand new Season 3 with the aftermath of the plane crash. Jane's dad decided to go to work. Don't know why. Whoever let him work. Hey, yeah, you know what? Let's have this guy control planes, or being involved in any sort of air traffic control after his daughter just died. Yeah, you know what? That is A-okay. So we finally figured out what the teddy bear was all about. Now, a lot of the first part of the season revolves around Walt and his family. Walter now lives alone. Skyler moves out with Walt Jr. and baby Holly. Walt is angry. Walt is also getting more arrogant because, you know, he's not the same guy that he was at the beginning of the show. Skyler ended up talking to a divorce lawyer, and I remember it was shocking to hear that she actually ended up admitting what Walt did to the divorce lawyer, but she wants to stay with him. I still don't know if it's because Skyler wanted part of that money or felt safe or felt perhaps even more attracted to Walter because he was a more dangerous man, right? I don't know why, or if it was actually she didn't want to tell Walter Jr. and baby Holly when she grows up that her dad's a drug dealer. She ends up staying with him. And sorry, I didn't mean staying with him. I meant keeping his secret. But she literally did the opposite of staying with him because she ended up going over to Walt's new apartment, or that wherever he was living. It was an apartment. It was an apartment he was living in. And she asked him for a divorce because she figured it out that he's a drug dealer. And after waiting so long, after 2 seasons of almost admitting it to Skyler, Walter actually ended up admitting it to Skyler. I don't know if that was the right move because Skyler having that information just is not a good thing. Shockingly, she kept the information, and then she ended up, actually going with Walt and going along with the story. She did end up, and I think she liked that money. But regardless, Walter admitted it. He cooked. He's a cook. He's not a dealer, but it's funny, to see Walt backtrack that, where he's like, no, I'm not, no, I am not a drug dealer. I'm a cook. I'm a cook. More like a manufacturer. And Skyler was just getting so bent out of shape about it, she ended up taking off. Other than that, though, the only other important things to note was the twin cousins started, looking after Heisenberg, or they're trying to kill this dude, and then they end up going over to Walt's house soon, but we're not quite there yet. Gus gave Walter the $3 million offer for 3 months of your time, but Walter still decided against it. Jesse also entered rehab because he is all broken up about Jane's death. We also have that scene where Walt ended up flipping out at a cop, and again, it's funny looking back on this because you can see the character development in Walt where he's getting more arrogant. He's feeling a little bit more untouchable, but of course that cop ended up humbling him where he's like, oh, that's just great, and then just cuts to it right away, Looked so good on Walt there. Regardless, after that, we have Skyler working for Ted a little bit more, living with Ted a little bit, sleeping with Ted. We have the famous I fuck Ted scene, Walt talking with Ted scene, and it's so tough because we all hate Skyler, and cheating is not a way around that. She should have, I was about to say she should have divorced Walt, but Walt wouldn't sign the papers for a long time. I'm having trouble remembering the exact timeline for that. So if she was trying to get a divorce and Walt didn't let her, I guess she was free to go, screw somebody else. But Walt, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, why was Walt, I guess it's understandable for Walt to be pissed off about it because Walt still wanted them to be a happy family. I don't know. Skyler felt trapped, so Walter, while he was making breakfast or something, she just looked at him and goes, hey, you know what? I fucked Ted. And that would be enough for me. I wouldn't be supporting her anymore. Nope. Not that I would. Oh, that's so tough to be put in Walt's situation, because your actions are the reason why your wife is resenting you. But I would never be able to get over any relations with another man, It's just we all hated Skylar a little too much. The happy birthday scene was completely justified. So Walt is going crazy. Saul is worried about it. He has Mike end up bugging Walt's house. They listen in and it's like, oh, you can screw the whole neighborhood. I'm not leaving. Other than that, another great scene is followed by that with Jesse driving by his dad's house to figure out that they renovated it because, of course, with the last season, they kicked Jesse out of that house. He has Saul go, intimidate the lawyer and Jesse's parents into buying the house, for cash. Saul playing his game. That was a great scene. You know what's crazy is because Jesse's parents are completely correct in the situation. No, they've given him too many chances throughout life. The dude is I don't know if you can say METH on YouTube. He was cooking the blue stuff. He was really, really involved with it. He hasn't fixed his life. And so once they found the lab in the basement, it's understandable for them to boot it out. But according to Jesse, it was given to him by his grandmother. So I guess it depends what exactly is the true story behind it. If the house was actually given to Jesse, it's his. But other than that, it's 100% understandable for the parents to kick him out, renovate, and want to sell. But it still looked so good for Jesse getting the house. After his dad basically telling him to screw off. He's like, I can come back for dinner sometime. Sometime, yeah, maybe sometime. So he just walks in, bought the place. Aura. But as we continue on with the story, the two twins, the cousins, ended up actually visiting Walt's house while he was in the shower because Walt decided that he wanted to move back in. Saul convinced him that Skylar was just bluffing, which makes a ton of sense. Mike is thankfully watching over Walter, which hurts even more when Walter tells him to, get out of here. But again, a little bit understandable from Walter. The cousins sit on his bed, find the eyeball, are ready to kill him while Walt's sitting in the shower. And dude, I remember for the first time that I was watching this, I was like, oh, I don't know, I was in like grade 8, 9 watching this for the first time. I don't know, I was a kid and I was like fascinated by the show. I still am, to be honest with you, but I just remember like the first time that I've seen some things. But the cousins did not end up killing Walt. But like I said, Walt's moved in now. Walt thinks she's bluffing and they have this entire scene with the police. Walt Jr. comes home, he's all happy just to figure out that Skylar called the police on him. And it's crazy how they do this trick. And what's funny is we just reacted to a video about like the mind games that shows play on you, which is very interesting. It's titled Rooting for the Villain. You can go check that out. Or if you're interested in just that video without my reaction, it's on the channel as well. It'll be in the description. You can have the link to it right there. Regardless, it's crazy. And one of the reason that I bring that up is because I was talking about that in that video. It's fascinating how Breaking Bad does that. Walt is a blue stuff, and sorry I have to keep saying that, a blue stuff distributor. He cooks up the blue stuff. He is a producer of it. He's completely involved into it. What Skylar doesn't know is he killed people. So we can't help but cheer for Walt, right? Skylar's like, I want you out. I'm going to call the police on you. But Skylar's the one we look at like, oh my God, what a nagging bitch, It's funny how they do that. And Walt's just like, do whatever you have to do. And then Walt, again, manipulating people. And again, the character development is growing with each episode over here because Skylar's on the phone to the police. And once they actually show up, Junior flips out. The negativity is already on Skylar because Junior's like, my dad is a great guy. And Walt's here with the baby like, I got her, honey. Don't worry about it. Oh, feeding the baby. Well, officer, if I'm being completely honest with you, I haven't exactly been the most attentful husband lately. Like, gaslighting to the max. Skylar can't come out. Oh, I messed up. Skylar can't kick him out. That's why she screwed Ted. Okay. That all makes sense. I'm remembering this correctly now. Regardless, we have another scene where Walter actually shows Skylar the money and begs her to take it because he didn't want to do all this or nothing because it actually was for his family. Other than that, the Salamanca twins are now targeting Hank because Gus said no to Walt. And this is where he has the whole talking with Ted scene because now Mike ended up dragging him to the car, bringing him to Saul, and then he questioned and Walt understood that Saul must have bugged his house because how would he know about what's going on, right? So then Walt's being a major dirtbag to Mike. I feel like any normal person would feel upset that your house is bugged and your privacy was breached. Like, you should know about it. But Mike's also right. Like, while Walt was telling him, like, hey, you can leave now, when Mike said something along the lines of, Walter, sometimes it doesn't help to have somebody watching your back. It was something along those lines. And that's completely true. You would want Saul and Mike watching your back, right? Especially with the Salamanca twins. As Mike said, He has no idea how close he came to getting axed in the head or brutalized. Who knows what they were going to do. The guys left a chalk carving of an axe in the road. Didn't even know, but Mike saw it. I think that Mike was completely right, but it was a breach of privacy, and I don't understand why Walt couldn't have known about it. Maybe it's because he's a little bit of a loose cannon. Regardless, Walt is all upset. He goes back to school. He tries to get with the principal. Doesn't work. Gets fired. Meets up with Jesse there, who decided to cook up some blue stuff. And Walt just scolds him. My product? Or maybe last time I made this video about season 2, I couldn't remember where Walter ended up actually saying, there is no your half of the money. It's my all of it. Was it in this scene? Because Jesse was going to cut him in, but Walter said it was all his product that he was cooking. And he's like, I'm disappointed in you, Pinkman. I'm disappointed in you. This is completely wrong. And Jesse did everything perfectly. The blue stuff was perfect. He wants to deal with Gus. And all he said was just because Walt was out of the business, Walt quit. He fired Saul. He's done. He just wants to focus on his family. Jesse wanted still in the business, but Walt and Gus was very, very smart because the reason he agreed to Jesse was because he believed that Walt's pride would bring him back to the business. It was already working. But Walt ended up figuring that out. I don't know exactly when that was, but, they ended up dropping off the money, half of it to Jesse, half of it to Walt. They started just having a big beef about that as well. Took it into Saul's office. But Gus ended up getting a hold of Walt, asking him to go for a drive, and he showed him the Super Lab. Something I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, so you have your opportunity to leave right now. If you have not watched Better Call Saul, I am going to spoil it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is so weird thinking about that lab again when knowing that Howard and Lalo are buried underneath it. Crazy. It's so weird, some of the things that you know after watching Better Call Saul, right? Very, very interesting. But anyways, Walt's fascinated by it. He said the answer is still no, though, but Gus was smart again, appealing to Walt's ego, saying, hey, why did you make these decisions? For the good of my family? Then there is no bad decisions. A man provides. And Gus is right to some extent. Continuing on, though, Hank is still suffering from PTSD, and Marie tries to, get close to him, wants to be open for him. Hank freaks out on Marie. Piece of crap. I don't care how much you are going through. I don't care what you've seen. You do not treat your wife that way. Same goes for a wife towards her husband. You two are supposed to be there for each other. You're supposed to bond. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, back onto the story. Walt ended up granting Skylar the divorce papers, which she did not end up actually filing because she started rethinking, getting back with Walt. Walt is now introduced to Gail, his new lab partner, because he gets back into the business. Gail is funny. We all know Gail. Memes to death, right? But Jesse gets back into the game as well because he gets back with Skinny Pete and Badger, although they're not to Gus's level and they end up having a little bit of trouble selling, if I remember that correctly. And then the rest of that one particular episode is with the RV. So Walt needs to get rid of it because he knows that Hank found out the RV because Hank ended up calling Walt, hey, Walt, you remember if this Pinkman kid ever had an RV? Walt goes crazy, talks to Saul, and I don't remember what Saul suggested. I thought it was something else. This is a time where he suggested, just offing Jesse. But regardless, Walt couldn't call Jesse, but Jesse ended up finding out about the RV. He led Hank straight to where the destruction site was. Oh, it was Badger. That's what it was. Sorry. Badger knew the guy that could crush it at wherever they were keeping the RV. They were about to crush it. And, Jesse figured it out because Badger just called Jesse and was like, hey, you want to hear something weird? Because Walt took the RV. They need to get it crushed. Hank was following Jesse. We have that incredible scene where Hank slowly strolled up. The takeaway from it is, this is my own private domicile and I will not be harassed. Bitch. Hilarious. I love it. It was very suspenseful. One of the best scenes, I will say, in the entirety of Breaking Bad. And one thing that I also want to do is ranking the best moments from Breaking Bad. Once I recap season 5 and season 4, I want to get into that. I want to do a couple more Breaking Bad tier lists because people did end up liking that. If you're interested, I already have a couple on the channel about the whole Breaking Bad universe. Regardless, we all know the way they ended up getting around this. This is because Walt had Saul have Francesca make a call saying that Marie was in the hospital. Hank took off, got to the hospital, realized that it was just Jesse getting out of it. He goes over to Jesse's house and beats the crap out of him. Jesse ends up in the hospital. Another one of the famous quotes come up. Hey, Adrian, Rocky called. He wants his face back. Jesse is not having any of it, but Jesse survived, and Hank is screwed. And Walt needed to get an action too, because Jesse wanted to get back into the business, and there was some point too where he finally accepted that he was the bad guy. I'm the bad guy, Mr. White, whatever he said. I don't know, something like that. But he ended up saying that if he ever gets caught, he has a get out of jail free card. It's Walt. And Walt wanted to work with Jesse again, and we had an amazing monologue from Jesse at some point throughout this episode too, where it's like, I'm not turning down the money. I am turning down you. All of the people in this show are amazing actors. Like the way I can't even, to the point where if I repeat it, it's just going to sound cringe. I remember it like, I want nothing to do with you. Ever since I met you, I have never been more alone. And then he like got really, really into it. I have nothing, no one. All right, it's all gone. Like it's so cringe me repeating it, but like so powerful the way that Jesse's actor was able to, portray that. Absolutely incredible. Walt ends up firing Gale. He's just, it's not working. It's not working. And he came up with some like ridiculous explanation for it too that was funny. Gale didn't understand, but against Gus's better judgment, he brought Jesse into the game. After Jesse initially refused, he said, all right, 50-50 partners. He came in, and hilarious again, where he was firing Gale. Oh, dude, this is the bomb, and starts playing with this stuff. What's up, partner? And just like leaving Gale like, this is my replacement. Make it make sense. But later on, at the end of that episode, Hank ends up getting suspended. He got his gun taken away, and the twins attack. Hank, because he's a badass, ended up, he didn't kill both of them. He killed one of them and smashed the other one with his car, survived the incident, but this did not leave Marie too happy. Marie ended up lashing out at Steve and the higher up, I forget who his name is, because everybody ended up visiting the hospital. All of the DEA was over there too. Marie, and I get it. I can tell you guys, no matter what happens in my life, I will never behave the way that Marie did to people. Like, what do you think? Hank's not going to get his gun taken? You took away his gun. You're supposed to protect people. The DA was completely right in taking away Hank's gun and suspending him. That's how it works. Whatever, though. And Jesse was the first one to actually find out about Hank, too, because I remember, roll me further, bitch. Other than that, we had Gus making his moves within the cartel. Walt ended up spending all day at the hospital and leaving Jesse in the lab playing, like, blow up in his suit, and he ended up lying to Gus. And it's funny because after watching the show, all of Walt's tells, just on and yapping too much. But Gus was very involved with the DEA. He knew about Hank. And dude, Gus has so much aura, man. He walked up, just met Walt's family, shook hands with everybody in the DEA, and Walt just has to listen to him have conversations about, like, Gus talking about what animals the cartel people are. Like, dude, that was one of the biggest aura. That's another thing we could rank. Like, who has the most aura in Breaking Bad? Because Gus is certainly up there. And he had to let Walt sit with that too. Crazy. So Gus knew everything all along. I don't know, like, how you could work with this person knowing how meticulous and careful that he is and not assume that he knew what was going on, especially if the cartel ended up shooting somebody. And really the only other thing to note about all of that is this is where the gambling story came into play, because Hank needed his medical bills paid and Skylar came up with it. She wanted to use some of Walt's money. I don't recall if she talked to Walt about it, but that's where the gambling the story was born. But then we continue on to one of the most famous Breaking Bad episodes, Fly. Walt was chasing a fly. The only character development was Walt, like, actually bonding over, I guess, whatever you want to say, bonding over the death of Jane. I think he almost admitted it too, but there are some people that talk about, like, oh, the beauty in this episode. I personally don't get it. I don't mean to be disrespectful, because I know I was mocking when I said that. I just don't see it. I don't mean to be disrespectful. If you like that show, if you like that episode, you do. It's not for me. I'm not going to break down everything about catching a fly. But now we continue on with the story, and Skylar is very worried that everything could be traced back with Walt with the hospital bills. So she offers to get a little bit more involved in the business. And this is where Skylar, again, it was horrible, because you just want to go, come on, man, shut up, Skylar. Oh, Walt, like, she'd light up at the money. It's this horrible situation you put us in. It's just horrible. It's tragic. And you just want to be like, Skylar, shut up. Leave me alone then. Don't worry about the money. So she gets introduced to Saul. Saul being very inappropriate to her. Clearly, his taste in women is just the same as his taste in lawyers, only the very best, with just the right amount of dirty. Amazing. Okay, Saul is one of the standout characters of the show. Love all of that. Saul ends up bringing up the idea for laser tag because scientists love lasers, but Skylar had a better idea in actually buying the car wash that Walt used to work at. That all worked very nicely. Or I don't know if they, at what point, no, it wasn't this season that they ended up actually buying the car wash, but that was a much better idea, and Skylar actually had some good advice, which was a little bit shocking, and it wasn't too naggy, right? Other than that, we are officially introduced to Andrea. I didn't like Andrea as much as, like, don't get me wrong, she's a better person, but I wasn't as interested in Jesse's relationship with Andrea as I was with Jane. But they go to this, whatever it was, alcohol or drugs anonymous meeting, and him, Skinny Pete, and Badger are trying to sell the blue stuff to everybody in there. Jesse, Badger says it's like selling to hurt dogs or something like that. They can't do it. They're not doing it. So Jesse does not care. He's like, let me show you how easy it is. He ends up hooking up with Andrea. Jesse rightfully scolded Andrea for wanting to do the blue stuff while she has a kid. She also learns about Tomas and the killer is a combo. And Jesse wants revenge, asks Walt for help, asks for some ricin, but Walt, of course, ended up refusing and ultimately does decide to protect Jesse. And before we get to like part of the climax of the season, we have the scene with Marie getting Hank out of the hospital by giving him a handy. I don't know, because Hank was paralyzed. Would it work? Or was that just like written into the show? Regardless, it was a funny scene. Jesse ends up getting brought over to wherever Gus had that private house at. He's supposed to keep the peace, but Jesse had no intentions on keeping the peace because they just ended up shooting Tomas. Andrew's all bent out of shape, so Jesse starts using again, which is very important to note. He goes to kill these guys. Walt ends up stepping in before Jesse ended up getting himself shot. Walt ran over the two dealers and then shot one of them, told Jesse to run. And then I remember being left on the biggest cliffhanger of all time because I wanted to see what happened. When this show was coming out, I was watching it like week to week. And then being left on the next cliffhanger was even worse. And then the finale of the season was very tense because Walt ended up meeting with Gus, didn't get killed. We had a funny scene with Mike where he's like, I can assure you I can kill you all the way from over here if I had to. Walt ended up convincing Gus to let him be alive, but Gus had no intentions on doing that. He chose Gale back to have the lab partner. He went to Gale's apartment, convinced Gale, where it's like, oh, well, Walter's a very prideful man. He doesn't talk about it. He's doing all of this for his family. But I am running a business if push came to shove. Would you be able to take care of the batch? And then Gus just like bullied him. I don't know. I'm confused because they had like such a friendly relationship. And then Gus looked at him like when Gale said something like, oh, maybe 2, 3, 5 cooks, whatever it was. And Gus just goes, one more cook, I suppose. Right? So Gale has no idea what's going on. I don't think any he knows what's going on. But after a little bit more tension, after a little bit more worrying, the moment actually came because there was a leak in Walter's lab. There was a leak, and Mike, still being as blunt as he is, Walter, the sooner you figure this out, what this is, the sooner we can all go home, as if like Walt gets to go home. But Walt actually ends up saving himself. And this was one of the best scenes in the entire show, in my opinion. I was like at the edge of my seat watching this, dude. I was at the edge of my seat because you know, or you assume that Walter is going to live. And it almost takes me out of the scene a little bit, knowing that these characters are going to live. And that's something that I really loved about Game of Thrones and Vikings. I'm going to spoil Vikings. If you happen to be watching that show or interested in that show, you also have a chance to leave this video in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What Vikings did was killed off their main character halfway through the show. And then it left you with like, oh my God, so like everybody's on the table now. And then it showed that everybody was literally on the table. Game of Thrones, you never knew who's going to be alive. So that's the only thing that sucked about Breaking Bad is you knew there were more seasons coming and you knew that Walter was going to live somehow, but he was a genius. He called Jesse, offering to give him up because he said that Jesse was like skipping town or something. He's like, right here in Albuquerque, I can take you to him. Tells Jesse it's going to have to be him, tells him that he's going to be killed. Jesse beats everybody to the apartment. Gale's not picking up his phone because he's listening to that weird music. And the season ends with a gun pointed to Gale's head. Jesse is crying, broken down. He doesn't want to kill anybody after he just did want to kill people, but Gale's a little innocent, right? As innocent as he can be in this show. And the season ends with a gunshot. And I had to wait so long for season 4. I had to wait so long. It was a horrible cliffhanger to be left on. So I'm happy that I know what happened throughout the show. This season, I personally thought that every season of Breaking Bad got better, but these last few episodes is where things like really, really, really started picking up, because now in season 4, you'll have not so much of a focus on Walt's personal life, which I was also really interested in that, to be honest with you, like Walt dodging around. And even when he was in the hospital on the phone and he's babbling and Skylar's up to him, knows him now, where he's like, oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your concern. And I'm sure that Skylar would love to hear that. Don't you want to know who that is? And Skylar just goes, like, I'm interested in the story with Walt's personal life. And it only gets better as he gets more involved with the business. And season 4 is great. Season 5 is even better. I can't wait to break those down for you. We're going to be breaking all of them down on this channel, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Why don't you check out one of the Breaking Bad tier lists that we made right here in the Breaking Bad universe? I'd love to have you over at that video. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care.